In essence, what you guys summarize is what in my world we call leadership. And that is the ability to influence. That is the simple definition of what leadership is. At the end of the day, I do want to kind of make this statement and perhaps reaffirm for the millionth time or state for the first time to some of you that you are important. I need you to hear that from somebody who's not in this space, who's not drinking the Kool-Aid, but someone who does have a family, young children, who appreciates early learning, particularly since my wife and I homeschool, really it's her. And I have watched her pour herself into that work just for the betterment of our children. And so I have a ton of respect for my wife because she made that decision. But then as I kind of zoom out and look at all of you in this room, I see you all in the same vein in that I respect you. I respect you for what you do and your contributions to our community. And it is important for you to hear that you are important. As we kind of transition into our presentation, I do want to kind of get just a smidge formal and talk about the purpose of the early learning division. And this specifically speaks to the role of the city. If you cannot see the presentation, again, you can look at it on your device. But there are about 4 things that kind of shows up for me as I was preparing for this presentation. This information is public information on the city's website, but I do want to highlight these things before we jump into our conversation today. The purpose of the early learning division, number 1, is to prepare children for school. This is the first thing the city kind of articulates as their purpose, their goal. As a partner with the city in this work, this has to translate into what you do on a day-to-day basis, that every day that we wake up and we open up our doors, that we turn our lights on and our programs are launched and kids begin to come in, our primary goal is to prepare our kids for school. And even if you're not doing hardcore education right now, the idea is that as they're getting ready for that next step, as you talked about, whatever that next step is, that you are that foundational piece to that child's growth and ongoing development. Next up, again, I connect with this one, and that is your role is to meet the needs of the learning needs of families. When I first came to Connecticut, I don't know if you remember, one of the first projects I worked on was a project called 2Gen. Quite frankly, we met in this room quite often, but the idea of 2Gen work was to serve 2 generations or more in a single household. And that meant the mom, dad, if there was a couple in the house, and the children. The whole concept of what you do is not about a singular customer. You serve multiple customers, and they just so happen to live under the same roof. One of the most memorable conversations I had with Shy was her conversation about her grandchild, right? Her grandchild is under her roof, so is the child's father, and then there's Shy and everybody else that's under the roof. In her case, that's a 3-gen setup. If you're servicing her grandchild, you are servicing that entire family and everybody that's connected to that kid, that child. The aunts, the uncles, the dogs, the cats, and everybody else that cares about the kid. It's all about the customer. And so when we talk about the family needs, the family's learning needs, maybe you already think this, but maybe I'm reiterating obvious things. It's all about the entire family unit. They are the customer. Next up, the city cares deeply about affordable education. This is a touchy topic because in order for it to be affordable, someone has to pay for it. We all are part of the nonprofit arena, right? So we got to figure out how to continue to do that. But it does, as leaders, as CEOs, as directors of programs, it does challenge us to figure out how do we keep the doors open and keep families coming in that and not discriminating against them on a financial basis. It's a pregnant pause for everybody to get a head nod and agree. It's the creative work that you're involved in. Yeah, we can nerd out and talk about brain development and childhood development and how your work connects with the work that I used to do around workforce development and how it impacts teen behavior and opportunity youth and all this other stuff that the city's involved in. But at the end of the day, you guys are business leaders, in some cases, business owners. How do you keep the doors open? And how do you do that without discrimination on a financial basis? We got to keep it affordable, yet keep the bills paid, yet find talent, pay for them, et cetera, et cetera. So we have a challenge ahead of us. And then lastly, we have to respond to the standards of the state in a EYC, right? So we have kind of responsibility that's above our heads so that we can continue to do the work that we are doing. Now, when you look at those 4 bullets, right, let's take a quick look at them one more time. Preparing children for school, meeting educational needs of families. Number 3, making it affordable and accessible, and responding to standards. Here's a question that I do want to talk about today before we get into the presentation. How do these 4 standards connect with your organization? Let me just, before y'all even respond to that, how many of you all are hearing this for the first time? Those 4 standards in that context. Are you used to this language? Yeah. Yes. These are things that you've heard before. Yes. Y'all quiet. Yes. All right, great. So then let's answer this question. How do you all connect with this stuff? How does this connect to your organizations? Yes. Thank you. Let's jump into our presentation. The whole purpose of today's conversation is to kind of talk about, in many cases, introduce to some of you the first time this idea of what it means to have, to lead, and to build a self-leading organization. And specifically as it relates to early childcare services, rather. Before I jump into becoming a nerd, let me just redefine leadership for all of us today so that we're all on the same page. Regardless of who you read and who you study, regardless of the articles that you decide to download, the books that you decide to pick up, the definition that is pretty much universal in the world of leadership to define leadership is the ability to influence. You can look at all types of leaders, good, bad, indifferent. It doesn't matter who you pick. What's consistent across the board, even with the most evil and heinous folks that have been our, in air quotes, leaders, has been and will continue to be their ability to influence. More specifically, to influence a group of people to accomplish a singular goal or a set of goals. That is the definition of leadership. When each of you took on your job as directors and as leaders of your organizations, or maybe you've launched your business, you not only took on the role of director, executive director, CEO, whatever it is, you've taken on this role of leader of people, leader of systems, leader of things, leader of this institution that you're now presiding over. And the intent, if you didn't realize it, is for you to fulfill this obligation to influence this entire system, this ecosystem of childcare services, so that it can accomplish a singular set of goals, or in the case of our presentation, these 4 goals that we talked about today. If you don't wake up every day thinking about how can I influence my team and my staff, our resources to accomplish these things, then perhaps we need to reevaluate whether or not you should be in that role. But if you do wake up every day trying to figure out how can I be a better leader, then today's conversation is indeed for you. Don't forget this definition that it's all about influence. You cannot make people do stuff. That is not influence, that's force. You cannot force people to want something for themselves that they don't want for themselves. That's not influence. You can't make families drop a kid off on time so that they can not disrupt a classroom. There's a lot of things you can't do, but many of us really embrace the idea of force. We try to make people do all types of things. I just want to make sure that I'm defining this for you, that any effort to force people to do stuff, whether it's your families, your kids, your staff, the city, the state, funders, that is not influence. Influence is all about how do you inspire somebody, and I'm not talking about the fluffy stuff, but truly, how do you inspire somebody to take a step forward to help you do something? What is that carrot? What is that thing that connects with them and you that causes a behavior to show up? What is it? It's not force. It can't be. It never works. It never will work. You can't force people to do stuff. When you look at our political discourse today, particularly over the past 8 to 10 years, there's been tons of conversations on both sides of the aisle that has sparked an amazing array of behaviors If you look at the Obama presidency and the Trump presidency, both sides of the aisle, two different flavors, you've seen amazing presentations of behaviors for a variety of reasons. And in both cases, you've never seen either person force a group of people to do something or act or behave in a certain type of way. Now, we can argue about what happened 2 years ago. That is not the point of this statement. But think about what I'm saying. It simply was influence. He didn't round up people to go storm the Capitol, regardless of your politics. It was just influence. This is why I open up the conversation, reminding you that regardless of what you think about the person in charge, whether it's you or who's somebody above you, maybe it's your board chair, maybe it's the folks here at the city, it's all about influence. Nobody can make anybody do anything. I cannot make you pay attention today. I can't make you stay connected today. I can't make you do a better job. I can't. I've given up that effort a long time ago. It's an impossible fight. I need you to embrace this idea that as you leave today, and as you take away this information, that you're not going to go back and try to make folks do stuff. I learned something from Dr. Clark. We're all going to do this. One, people don't know what you're talking about because I'm getting ready to get nerdy on you. And then number two, it's just impossible to round up people to force something to happen. So there has to be something much more deeper. To help us kind of get there, I want to introduce this idea of self-leadership. Many have not heard of this term, but this is the theory that I latched onto when I was engaged in my doctoral studies. And this theory, as you might have guessed it, is simply defined as how do you lead yourself? How do you influence yourself to accomplish a goal? Interesting concept, interesting idea. How do you make this happen? And as many of us know, we can't make ourselves do stuff. Some of us may be on a weight loss journey and we've tried to starve ourselves to death to fit in that dress for tomorrow's gala. It's not going to work. You can't make yourself do it. You try not to eat that piece of cake at 10 o'clock at night, but it's just too tempting. I went to the Big E last night with my family, and we were walking out, and there was this stand for deep fried tacos. And I got in line, and I said, "No, I'm not going to do that. It's 9 o'clock. Like, I'm pushing 40." And so my daughter says, "Okay." My wife, who really didn't help the situation, says, "Go ahead. It's all right." And then my stupid self said, "Okay," got in line and ate the whole taco with my daughter, right? Knowing I shouldn't have eaten it. And I certainly paid for it. It's very hard to influence yourself, to make yourself do stuff, even though psychologically I shouldn't. Physiologically, I just shouldn't. It's a thing that I shouldn't do, whatever it is. It's very hard. So there has to be other things that kind of inspire performance and behavior. Now, when you start to look at a self-leading institution, I can't teach you what that looks like until I teach you what it looks like here within self. Can't have a self-leading institution without a self-leader. So self-leadership focuses on three key components. They are in front of you on the screen, or if you're following on your device, three key components. The first component is the psychological components, much of which some of you guys have mentioned today in the world of leadership, particularly for adults, mature adults. It's no different than what you guys talked about earlier, making those connections for many adults. They're called kids, right? But the same concept exists for adults and those who lead institutions, teams, organizations. It begins in the mind. Next up, the next phase of self-leadership is body, behavior, performance. The body performs and does whatever the mind says it should do. All right. It has to follow in that order. You cannot have a bodily function without the mind saying, yes, go forth and do. When my wife convinced me by simply saying, go ahead and get that deep fried taco, my mind registered she gave me permission. And when she gave me permission, that means that my body said yes. And I followed through and got that deep fried taco. This is how it works on a day-to-day basis when you're at the office, when you're at the job, when you're building with your board, your team, your staff. It starts here, then here, mind, then body. And then lastly, the thing that most people don't think about are the external things or the reward systems. We all need carrots to cause us to do something, right? We all need inspiration to do something. For adults, for people leading teams and organizations, you need a carrot too. I want to spend some time kind of thinking about each of these categories and walking you through what it looks like to be a self-leader. Now, at the top of our image here, if you're following on your device, is this person's mind, the psychological world this person is living in. Every one of us has a psychological world that we exist in. Some of us may not know that it's fairy tale, but whatever. You have your own world that you exist in, and it exists in here. Nobody exists in that world in there with you. It is a lone place to be in. You are living in an efficiency apartment in your head, and you're the only one with the key. This is what life is like on a regular basis. This is what business is like, that you are in this by yourself. You have your own psychological world, and everybody else is just a figment of your imagination kind of rolling through your world. This might sound familiar because that's how our kids behave, but adults behave the same way. We all have an idea of what we want to accomplish, what we want to do, how we want to do it, and we're going to make it happen. And everybody else that stands in the way, we will roll over them. You're either with me or against me. The psychological world is very, very real. And it is made up of a couple of things. It's made up of your core beliefs, what drives you. It may include faith, but beliefs really focuses on the concepts that drives outcomes. Why do you believe what you believe? What frames your thinking? What's driving you? What's moving you? What's making this a reality? So your beliefs makes up your psychological world. Secondly, imagined experiences make up your psychological world. You're always playing psychological chess. If I do this, then this will happen. If I don't do this, then that will happen. If I talk to this person, this person's going to get jealous, and that's going to happen. It sets off a series of activities in your mind that causes you to rethink the process and get back to your core beliefs. And then the third element that makes up your psychological world is your ability to talk to yourself, self-talk. Right? What do you say to yourself? These three things, the beliefs, imagined experiences, and self-talk, kind of frames how we view the world. And again, how we view the world begins here in this lone room that exists within us. If you ever want to have a different outcome in your life or in your business, in your center, with your kids, with your staff, it cannot begin with these. Your hands represents activities that we do. Many of us, particularly in the nonprofit arena, we are quick to use these and slow to use this. We are quick to take action. We're quick to fix something. We're quick to move something. We're very helpful as an industry. I don't know what it is about us in this industry, but we're very quick to just be helpful. We'll use our hands really quickly, but won't use this. We'll help every family that comes across our roster and enroll them, and in some cases over-enroll. This is the hands, but we won't use our head, and we won't think it through. We over-enrolled and don't have enough money. Over-enrolled, don't have enough teachers. Over-enrolled, and I, as a leader, don't have capacity to lead. So we're really quick to use this. This conversation today is encouraging you to, in the words of my dad, who is no longer with us, slow down. Take it easy. Fall back for a minute. Breathe. You already know you have the heart for this. This came across clear in your introductions, in your talks this morning. I can see it. I can feel it. We have 100% participation today, 100% attendance. We had 100% attendance. Well, she would have been here, right? So we have 99.9 attendance, right? That means you guys care. And I already know how hard it is to be here today. We had a call last week. I don't know who was there. You were there, and a couple of folks were there when we talked about the fact that people called out. Karen, I think somebody got hit by a car, right? People are sick, and there's a lot going on in your centers, but you're here today, which proves to all of us that you obviously have the heart for this. That's not the question today. That's not the challenge today. But I am going to challenge you to put your hands down for a moment. Just slow down. Let's begin to think about this. Let's begin to think about the work. We got to rethink, reimagine our world, particularly the world where you exist in your center. So again, we got to reevaluate our belief systems. We got to reevaluate the imagined experiences, and we got to reevaluate the self-talk, the words that we speak to ourselves. I'm going to dive into this as we continue to go. But now, as we've kind of set the tone for how things work in our world, it's all psychological and it spins in our head constantly. We're constantly in our head and it's going back and forth. Doing this thought process, it actually begins to influence behaviors. Your thought patterns influence how you perform. It influences how you perform. What does that mean? It influences how you treat your staff. It influences how you develop staff. It influences how you hire staff. It influences how you treat families, who are your favorite families versus who's not. It influences how you engage with the city. It influences how you respond to state standards. It influences every bit of your business. How you think shows up in these. It really does. And while we may think we're hiding what we're really thinking because we haven't said anything, we can read your behavior, right? Like we can actually see what you're thinking by the way you function. It's hard. It's hard to hide it because it's a process that starts here and it shows up here. So if you want something to change, you don't change this. You don't starve yourself to death and cut off all chocolate cake. Right? That's not how that works. It's not going to work. It may work for 2 seconds, but it's not permanent. It's not sustainable. If you want change, you don't change this. You don't change your behavior. You change this. Begin to change how you think, how you view the world, how you view your community, your network, your partners, your funders, your families. Change that, then it changes all of this. Then lastly, as you kind of adjust your thinking and your behavior slowly but surely, but permanently starts to adjust, you start to notice that you're interacting with the outside world in a different way. Thank you. You begin to notice that you're interacting with the outside world in a different way, and you start to have these external factors kind of contributing to who you are becoming as a person and as a leader. The external factors include everything that I've listed: your partners, your funders, the city, the state, your families, your community, your business, your property, your staff. All those experiences become very, very real, because now once you get out of here and you start using these things, when you start using these things, it's now interacting with the outside world, and you start to get feedback. And people start to tell you by words or actions whether or not they appreciate the changes you are making. And depending on what they say and how they respond and how they're behaving, you then make adjustments. Notice throughout this entire image, these arrows don't stop going. They're not one-way arrows. It is a constant circle. From top to bottom, from head to toe, there's a constant flow, because the feedback you get externally now goes back to your behavior and it influences your mind. Give me 1 sec. I'm gonna get through all this and write the question down for me, okay? It influences your mind. Think about that time you were negative, you had a negative conversation with somebody who did you wrong, treated you wrong. How did you behave? You coiled back. You kind of got tight. And in some cases, you begin to avoid that person. That is a behavioral response to an external experience. It happens all the time. You have a nasty parent who always has a nasty attitude, and the moment you see this parent walking in the door or come down the street, what y'all do? Not today. Not today. I ain't here. Lights off. Office is locked. I got to go to the bathroom. All of a sudden, I'm in a conversation with the employee I actually hate because I'm avoiding this parent. Right? We have these behaviors in response to these external moments, and it's because we've had an experience that has provided feedback. That feedback now generates a response in our bodies, and then it goes back into our minds and creates a whole new set of core beliefs about that person, about that mom, that dad, that grandmother, that grandfather. And unfortunately, we remain stuck here. We remain stuck here, and people in our minds remain stuck. They're not allowed outside the room. They can never grow outside of what we've determined they are, who we've determined they are. For some of us, our beliefs are stuck in 2015 about the families that we're serving. Some of you are serving multiple generations of families, and you still treat that parent the same way, and you're serving their third and fourth kid. That's a problem. and yet we're upset that they're late on their fees. We're upset that their kids always act out. Oh, we're struggling with staff that have been in our businesses. I think, Karen, you mentioned 12 years. And you mentioned 12 years. That's not the first time I heard this working with this group, that you guys have a lot of longevity. It's something about this work and the nonprofit work that has longevity. First of all, if people have been with this business or your business for a long time, unfortunately, specifically if you've grown up in this business, some of these people are stuck here in your head in a certain type of way, and they could never grow out of whatever you think they are. Now, you might be right. They might be a jerk. But just acknowledge this realism that we treat people based upon how we see them in our head. We believe these things about them, and we imagine that every time we ask them to do something, to go the extra mile, they're always going to give us pushback, and therefore we don't ask them to do more, and we avoid confrontation and conversations, and we never move the needle forward. So you got this person who's been with you for 12, 15 years, and they're still like a teacher when they can be doing more. They know a lot more than that. Something has to change, y'all. It's not this. We use these to give people a promotion and more money and thinking that's it. We'll pay for your education and certification. We use these things to help people solve problems. Great. But when's the last time you readjusted this about your staff, about your families, about the city? That the city's changed. Kim, our friend, is no longer here. You got Christina and Shy and Katie. Got a new team here. So do you see them the way you used to see them 90 days ago when they don't look the same? It's a problem. Things are changing. The world is changing. So because the world is changing in this transition, that means that how we interact with the external forces, we have to allow that to influence how we process. So a self-leader is always going through this evaluation process internally. That I'm always looking to reevaluate my core beliefs. Is this idea still correct? What I think about this person, is it still accurate? Has this person changed or evolved? I opened up telling you can't make a person change. How many people disagree with that? Raise your hand. All right, so it seems like you guys agree with me. What this means is that life happens to everybody, and people are shifted and adjusted because life is happening to them too. So if that's true, when's the last time you reevaluated that person in your mind? Have they changed? Has something caused a shift in them? The families you serve, have things changed with them? Have their economics changed? Has someone gotten the job? Has someone gotten married? Has that shifted how they view parenting? When's the last time you reevaluated these things? We talk about doing surveys, intakes, and all this other stuff. It sounds cute, but the reality is we really don't do it that much. If we did, we would reevaluate how we treat our families. I'm challenging you, and I have no dog in the fight. I'm not in this business. I'm not connected to you guys financially. I'm just speaking my truth to you. I'm challenging you as nonprofit leaders, as early learning leaders, to change how you think about your work, to change how you're looking at your families, how you look at your staff. Heck, how you even treat yourself. You're burnt out. It's probably because you still see yourself in a certain type of way, but you're 5 years beyond that person. You've changed. You're older. I said it, you're older. Still beautiful, but you're not the same. It's not the same. Your kids are older. It's weird when your kids start to grow up and they don't need you anymore. Your family composition is changing. Parents are getting older. It's just different. You're not the same person. Give yourself some space and grace. You do that by changing your mind. So we've talked quite a bit, and if you have questions, I'm going to encourage you to write them down. There will be space for Q&A, and then we'll jump into a small group session. But I can't stress enough this part about external factors that influence how we function and behave, how we think, etc. Please do not minimize this. And another way of saying this is don't avoid confrontational moments. When I was leading programs, I think I've turned a lot of people off with this statement, but I'm a big believer in confrontation. Not fist fighting in office, but I believe in confrontation. And the reason why I believe in confrontation, particularly amongst teams, is because the faster we have a disagreement or an argument, the faster we can figure out the worst of each other and determine can we still work together. If I seen you at your worst and I'm still deciding to work with you or to keep you on staff or to be subordinate to you, then we can get through anything. Confrontation really does help. But many of us really avoid it because we just don't like how it feels. We're not as good at it. We don't know how to fight fair. Many of us are not objective. But I'm going to encourage you to begin thinking about how you can be confrontational. So please do not go back to your businesses and start fighting with folks. Don't, Dr. Clark did not say that. I'm not promoting that. But I am encouraging you to face your fears when it comes to people. This is what this business is about. You work with people all day, little people, big people, old people, young people. They're clients of yours and they're staff of yours. And many of us avoid having those confrontational moments because we just don't want to. Unfortunately, if you don't do it, you're not going to grow and you're not going to become the self-leader you need to be for yourself. Think of the organization, just for you. So these external factors are really key in terms of how you view all this stuff. Now, just to kind of tie it together, bring it home. I can pontificate about external factors all day long, but this is an early learning network. And so we got to really talk about how external factors really show up in your world. We've talked about these 4 goals, right? These 4 things the city cares deeply about. And apparently you guys care about it too. Many of you have said you've integrated these 4 things in your plans. Some of you are looking at doing so. But we need to talk about how these 4 things show up every day to influence our ability to lead self. I'm not even addressing leading others. I'm talking about leading self. So the external factor of school prep and the value of that will undoubtedly influence how you behave and your decisions about curriculum and your decisions about staff choices, staff hiring, salary, etc. It will influence how you move forward in your culture development. If you're not focused on developing the next generation of learners and professionals to contribute to our community, then you're not serious about your job and you're definitely not serious about leading yourself. No, you're not teaching calculus. No, but you're teaching little people how to process and make decisions and to have healthy conflict and to grow from it. That's what school is. It's a learning environment on multiple levels. And if you avoid those confrontational moments in terms of challenging staff to come up with new ideas, implement new ideas, or if you're resistant to allowing your staff to develop and implement ideas, then you're not serious about school prep. Now, I'm not an expert in this space, so I'm only going to go but so far with these statements, but I am going to challenge you to think about this. What you may not know about me and the work that Christine and I have done together, we've done workforce development together as partners for quite a long time. And whether you know it or not, your work actually impacted me when I was running programs. Meaning the kids I served, who we call opportunity youth, labeled by our mayor, are kids 18 to 24 who are at risk of becoming unproductive adults. And as y'all indicated, that is not a result of just them making bad choices at 18. No, this stuff started at 3, 4, 5 years old, which means that you impact the work of many other professionals you've never met. Preparing these kids for school is also preparing them for work, preparing them to be our neighbors, our barbers, our mayors, our CEOs, etc. You are deeply important. So when you avoid these moments of growth with your families or your staff, you're really harming all of us. It hurts. If it's feasible within your organization and in your culture, particularly if you're the leader and you can set the tone, begin to open the door for conversations with your team about how can we do a better job, a different job of prepping our kids for tomorrow. And guess what? You as a leader, you're not going to introduce not one idea. Not one. Many of us in this industry, what did I say? The first thing we do is this. I need help with developing new curriculum. And we the first one to jump in as CEOs helping. No, that's not what leaders do. That's not influence. You're trying to make it out to be what you want it to be. You're always helping. Step back. In the words of Wilbur Clark, slow down. Take it easy. Raise the question, create the challenge, and let your staff invest in this process. If you want to improve how you prep for school, challenge your staff to come up with concepts. Challenge the staff to read the standards that you read every day. Challenge the staff to network and to grow. The opportunity is there. And instead of trying to control it all, let the process play itself out. You're still the leader and you got the final say. Invite your team to be part of this process, because now when that happens, this again begins to influence how you interact with your staff and your families, and it changes your body and your mind. And you'll start to notice slowly but surely the stress you feel throughout your body starts to dissipate. You're not touching as much. You're not doing as much. Watch this. You're not controlling as much. Y'all are quiet. Y'all, I don't know about y'all. Next up, external factors, educational needs of families. Regardless of what you think about your families, regardless of the zip codes you serve, every family wants the best for their kid, even if they don't know how to articulate it. So the confrontational moment is to move beyond a family's inability to communicate their need. Get over yourself as a professional. You clearly have the language. You clearly know what's needed. Stop judging families, if you do this, based upon their inability to communicate. If you see a need, have that conversation, try to put words to what the family's trying to say, and invest in the learning needs of that family. Teach your staff how to do that in your absence. Develop a framework. If you're really good at it, develop the framework, write it down, teach your staff how to execute it, and challenge them to do that very thing. Third, it needs to be affordable and accessible. I'm not going to touch on this, but so much because I'm not totally familiar with the business model. But what I will say, if you guys operate like we do in the nonprofit arena, affordability is key, and we have to figure out how to generate ongoing revenue. So I am going to challenge you to begin thinking about, as you begin to let go of controlling school prep and educational needs of families, spend more time figuring out how to make money. Generate revenue for your program, for your business. I'm pretty confident if you generate money, it'll solve the problem of affordability for your families. Pretty confident of that. We need your mind to spend more time strategizing around revenue generation. There are tons of ideas that we can talk about. Grants and other categories, sponsorships, partnerships, if it's appropriate, investments, and other concepts that exist in Harvard. Open up your mind, but it's hard to do that when you're constantly doing this. When you're constantly working with these, it's hard to think. Your mind is clouded when you're constantly helping and jumping in and controlling stuff. And lastly, the standards are the standards. They are what they are. Somebody has set them, and you have signed on the dotted line to uphold those standards. Stop fighting them. Now, there are times where the standards need to change because you're noticing things on the ground that are not meeting up with the standards. There's an appropriate place and time for that. But I think sometimes we just enjoy the fight, just to fight, because we just don't want to do something, as opposed to realizing that the standards are the standards. Let's work as best as we can to meet them. And if there are opportunities to grow, let's find a partner to help us change that. But the idea that we're just going to fight against every freaking standard the city, state sets, or NIAC or the state, you're tripping. You're doing too much. And it's not working. Find yourself stressed out, frustrated, uninspired, burnt out, and it's everybody's fault except yours. That's the problem. All of this flies in the face of self-leadership. Now, I'm going to pause here because I went on a lot longer than I was supposed to, but I am going to challenge you to just process through what we talked about around self-leadership and this idea that if you want to change things within your organization, where does it begin, y'all? Where does it begin? Come on, teachers. Where does it begin? Wait. Where does it begin? In the mind. Come on. Where does it begin? Say it out loud. Where does it begin? In our minds. And then what happens once you change your mind? What's next? Y'all was sleeping? Once you change your mind, what's the next thing to change? Your behavior. And then you begin to deal with these external factors. Now, what I didn't cover was the reward process, and I'll keep it short, but the reward process is just a natural experience that you have. You start to find enjoyment in the journey. You start to get excited about just the journey of growing and development. You know, today I didn't argue with teacher so-and-so. That's good. that's an inspiration to keep you going. You know what? Tomorrow, I'm not going to argue with her, nor I'm going to argue with the other teacher. I'm going to try to do 2 people today. Yeah. Today I'm not going to avoid parent so-and-so. I'm going to go up and say good morning and say, how can I help you? And listen when they start going off, because I know they're going to go off. And your ability to stand there and take it, it's inspiring you. That's a natural reward. Your ability just to be. Let me pause here. Invite comments and questions. I know you had a question. I'll give it to you first. Yes. I love it. So I got 19 minutes and 28 seconds, 27 seconds, 26 seconds to close this out. So I want to walk you through goal setting reimagined. And there was something that was shared earlier. I think, Karen, you shared it earlier about how staff in our centers, they are so used to the state standards and the NIAC standards. And Karen mentioned that when she joined the team some time ago, the thing that bombarded her was what? That tell us what to do and we'll do it. Tell us the standards, right? How many of you guys relate to that? Like, you guys relate to that behavior? That staff just says, tell me what to do and I'll do it. Is that normal within your organizations? It becomes problematic, right? Because as a leader, you begin to kind of take on that burden. It's easier, and this is what we say to ourselves, and it's a lie. It's easier that for me to do it myself and to tell everybody what to do than for me to give them the space to do it. It's one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves professionally. And there has to be a way for us to rethink how we approach this. Now, we walked into this room this morning, raining, which is like, great, it's raining, and I got tech equipment coming in. But it was a blank room. And so Katie asked me, how do we want to set the room up? So I said, give me a horseshoe. Right. And the intent of the horseshoe is for me to kind of be able to touch base with everybody. But unfortunately, it kind of creates this box. And it'd be awkward if I kind of walked outside the horseshoe, wouldn't it? It'll be weird, like I'm behind your back and you can't look at me and you just hear my footsteps. And so, unfortunately, as a presenter, just like your staff and many of you, I have a box that I'm limited by. My job is to not break the box because, again, it'll be awkward if I did. But my job is to operate within the box. Now, in the room, I asked for a stand for my laptop, and we found one. And so it's propping up my my laptop and everything else. But it can be a crutch if I let it. Right? How many presentations have you been to where the lectern has been a crutch for the presenter, and all they do is just stand and pontificate, right? So my challenge is to always figure out how to connect with the crowd. And that means that even though Katie and I, in our infinite wisdom, set up this shoehorn or horseshoe, I have to still figure out how not to be limited by the physical barriers that we've set up, right? During the last 4 minutes or so that I've been talking, I've been trying to demonstrate what it's like to set goals and to function even within standards. That despite the limits that are in front of you, you have more than enough space to move around and to do your thing. And this is what you guys mentioned today. How do we get our staff to notice the boundaries? Don't be awkward and illegal and go outside the horseshoe, right? We're not trying to get in trouble, but how do you function within the boundaries and still be relevant and connected and impactful and results oriented? My job is to use all this space for my benefit to make that connection with you, right? Not to stand here. I can. That's an option. Most staff choose this. They choose to stand still and to stay stuck. But there are many options available to me to use this space to make that connection. I want to introduce to you guys how to reimagine goal setting. We were supposed to do an activity. Sorry. In the presentation is a link where you can actually do this in your office if you care to. But I want to still introduce the idea of how to set goals. Some of my clients use this to actually build their strategic plans. As a matter of fact, I got a client I'm working with this afternoon to build her theory of change based off this strategy I'm going to show you. This can be used for complex organizational challenges and issues. This can be used for frontline issues that are plaguing the classroom. Doesn't matter. You can use this framework as often as you need to and in a creative way as you need to. But I think the bigger point that the city wants to get across to you is that you're not limited. You're not bound. by the structures you see. Now, yeah, don't be awkward and go outside the horseshoe. Don't do that. Don't get all of us in trouble, right? But we do want to encourage you to use all the space that's there. You want your staff to stop thinking like you're the crutch. You want your staff to stop leaning on you for everything. These are my words. Then you stop doing it yourself. That they didn't pay me to say that. I'm saying it to you. You want your staff to stop it, you stop it. Stop leaning on the city as your crutch. Stop expecting the city to give you all the answers. Stop expecting the city to solve all your issues. Here's a little secret. They can't. There's only 3 of them. They can't. They can't. They're serving a network of 18 organizations and you want them to solve your specific problem. They cannot. I'm afraid your staff are reflecting the behavior you exhibit on a day-to-day basis. Challenge. This is why this whole workshop is about me, not them, not who shot John or slapped Sally. It's about me. Because when I behave as a self-leader, it just shows up and oozes out, and my staff gets the point without a workshop. But I want to help you kind of think about goal setting. So there's one leading question that we start off with when we're trying to figure out how to set a goal. And again, I want you to understand how to rethink getting up the ladder and achieving an outcome that matters to you. All right, it's all about going somewhere. We have somewhere to go. The first question that we got to ask ourselves is, where are we now? As an organization, as a team, as an individual, where are we right now? Like, it's a truth serum. This is the moment of truth for us. Tell the truth to yourself. Where are we at right now financially? Where are we at right now programmatically? Where are our enrollment numbers? Where are our teacher slots? Like, what's the truth? Where's our relationship like with our funders? Where are we now in every category that matters? If you can't tell the truth with this particular question, it's going to be awfully hard to build any strategy that matters, because every strategy you build from this point forward might be built off of a lie or a half truth, and you might be solving a problem that you misdiagnosed. So when you think about categorically where we're at right now, consider the entire health of your organization. You might also identify things that you're doing really, really well. Like, we're really, really good at recruitment. We're really good. We may be really, really good at identifying and recruiting talent and retaining talent. We might be really good at parent engagement, at classroom instruction, right? Where we're at right now is about the good and the bad, not just the bad, but the good. Because if you identify things you do very well, then you can build off of that too and lean into it more. So where are we right now? Next up, when we want to understand how to get goals, meet our goals and set goals, where do we want to go? So we're really good at classroom instruction, but what's the next level? Right? What's the next phase of growth for us over the next 12, 24, 36 months? We're really good at parent engagement, recruitment. We got all our slots filled, but what's next? Do we want to open up a new center? Do we want to acquire a new facility, build new partnerships? All right, we're doing okay financially. We're breaking even, but we want a buffer. So where's the next revenue line at? Where do we want to go? You know what? We stink in classroom instruction. That's where we are right now, but we want to get better. We're not going to compete with somebody else. We just want to get better. We are really good at classroom instruction, but we're not good at recruitment. We want to be able to have 70% occupancy in our slots, because right now we're at 50. 70 is better than 50. We're not going to get 100 next year. That's not true. No organization is going to make that flip. It takes a lot to do that. But how do we make incremental growth to go from 50 to 55 to 60, 65, and to 70? Where we're at right now has to be an honest assessment of the moment so that you can talk about where I want to go. Like, what's next? Even on a personal level. Right now, I'm a director of a program and I'm doing okay. Salary's okay. You know, kids are in school. They're doing all these things and I get to take these trips and do whatever. But where do I want to go next in my career? Do I want to stay here another 3 to 5 years? If I do, there's nothing wrong with that. But if I stay here, what do I want to accomplish while here? If here is not where I want to be, then what's next for me? This exercise can be a personal exercise or a group exercise, an organizational exercise, a community exercise, but it begins with identifying the right now. Where are we at right now? Where do we want to go? Next up, how do we get there? So we want to get to 70% enrollment. How do we get there? High level strategies, high level tactics, y'all. Don't get too deep on me yet. Just high level. Well, we need to improve our marketing. We need to establish a solid brand, and we need to be more present in the community. Just off the top of my head, maybe those are the high level strategies you need to execute just to get to 70. Whatever it is, think high level, because we need some aspirational goals to pursue and to achieve and to give to our staff so they can pursue and achieve along with us. What do we need to do to get there? How do we get there? Next up, once you look at these high level goals of how to get there, now you want to get deep. So we want to improve our marketing. What does that mean? Everybody points to social media, fine. Your print media, your mailers, engagement at events, partnership with other organizations that have access to parents you don't have access to. Maybe co-enrollment. Maybe there's a partner that does from birth to 2, and then you take on the enrollment from 3 to 5. I don't know. Right? There has to be a way to improve marketing. We need deeper strategies here. One of the things I want to point out to you as I go through the remaining steps here is that you can't think on this level if you're busy doing this. If you're busy helping, if you're busy doing everybody else's job, then who's minding the business? Who's reimagining the business? Remember, we talked about this with self-leadership. At the top of it all, you got to change your belief system. I believe that we can grow. I believe that we can do better. I believe we can improve enrollment and our marketing. We can improve customer service. We can lower our costs. I believe we can pay our teachers better. I believe we can fill out our classrooms. I believe. In order to get to that point, you got to change your core belief system about your business. Nobody else is thinking about your business as much as you are. But if you're busy in a classroom, who's minding the business? If you're busy comparing your business or your program to the other program across the street, who's worrying about your business? When I was growing up, the old people used to tell me, you got 6 months to stay out of your business and 6 months to focus on your business. I just don't got time to worry about what you're doing because I got to worry about me and mine. And if it so happens that I'm outperforming you, it is what it is. And if I'm not doing better, then I got to reimagine my business, change my belief system, change my imagined experiences. Can I imagine doing better? Can I see us doing better? It doesn't matter who's on staff now. It doesn't matter who's on my board now. Can I see this organization being greater and better? That's an imagined experience. Can I see us recruiting more parents? Can I see us recruiting different income levels in our organization? Can I see us making our services more affordable? Can I see more revenue coming in? And do I believe it? Do I talk to myself about these things every day? I believe this. Oh, we're going to grow. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. We're going to grow. When I took over a program called Strive, I moved here in 2014, 2015, and unbeknownst to me, that program name stunk in the city of Hartford. I didn't know that there was a scandal with the previous organization that had it. And so the organization that I worked for took it over, and there were just a whole lot of challenges. But what became super clear to me as I got into the job was that there was like this tone, this underbelly of things that people said and thought about Strive, and it just wasn't positive. And so now I got the job and I got to do something about it. Every day after kind of doing my assessment, it became super clear that my goal, besides making money, generate revenue, was my number one goal was to develop and execute a hearts and minds campaign. I had, particularly in Hartford, I had to change the hearts and minds of everybody that did business with Strive years ago. Without that, we can forget the money. We can forget satisfying funders. We can forget everything else. If the funders and the stakeholders didn't believe hearts and minds in us, we can just shut it down. Every day, went into that office on Sargent Street, and it was a priority. How do we change hearts and minds? Because we're going to do this. I don't know how, I don't know who, I don't know when, but we're going to do this. I had to change my belief system, even though the truth was we stunk. We were bad. I mean, really bad. And so I had to change my own belief system. Not only did I teach it every day and got on everybody's nerves, I believed it. My behavior signified this is where we're going. I'm challenging you to do the same thing. You're looking for inspiration. Well, hope this is it. But really, the inspiration you need comes from here. If you don't got it here, nobody's going to inspire you to do better, do different. There's nothing I can say right now that's going to say, I got it. That didn't work. There you go. I got it. I feel it. There's nothing I can do to help that. It comes here. What is it that you envision, guys? What is it that you want for your programs? So we go through this process of developing goals. Where are we at now? Where do we want to go? How do we get there? Lastly, when will we get there? One of the things we don't do well in our industry when we set goals is we don't set a time limit. We don't set a deadline. We don't like to be constrained by time in our industry, in the nonprofit industry. I don't know why. We just think time doesn't exist for us. We think our funders need to give us more time for our reports. We think our funders need to get us an extension on our grant submissions. We think our parents should give us an extension to get ready for the beginning of school. We think the city should overlook the fact that we're not compliant because we need more time. No, you don't. Almost let one slip. Get your stuff together, y'all. Like, get it together. When are you going to do this? When? You're going to leave this workshop, hopefully give me a good survey response. But the question that you got to wrestle with is, when am I going to do all this stuff that we talked about today? When? By when? Even if I don't make it, I need a deadline. When? You ask your staff this question all the time. I'm going to do better, boss. I'm going to do better. When? Because we've been talking about this for 3 years. When? I'm going to drop my kid off on time. Yeah, you've been going here for 2 years. When? Let's talk about it. When? A funder says they're going to support you and haven't dropped the check yet. When? Notice all these external conversations we have. When? We want when it matters to us, but when do you put the challenge to yourself and say, when am I, as a self-leader, going to make this happen?